All right, so Adam Silver ended up getting on the NBC News, and he was talking about the CBA negotiation that's going on between, of course, the owners and the players, and he absolutely said something that pissed the WNBA off. All right, they ended up taking shots at him, which I will show y'all that after this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had.
This is it. The moment the entire future of the WNBA changed, and almost nobody saw it coming. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, sat down for what seemed like a normal interview on NBC News. The topic was the ongoing CBA negotiations between the WNBA's owners and its players. But then, with a single, carefully worded sentence, he dropped a bomb that sent shockwaves through the league and forced the players' union to publicly declare war. What he said was so revealing, it exposed the real, brutal reason these negotiations are on the verge of collapse. And by the end of this, you'll understand why there's a very real chance we are watching the final years of the WNBA. This isn't an exaggeration. This is a breakdown of how a league can be killed by its own success.
Share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
So the main part that I want us to pay attention to is this first part, okay? It's really quick. This clip was really quick, but we need to pay attention to what he said right here.
Yes, I mean, I think the share is...
It all centers on one phrase. Let's listen to it. Silver says, I think share isn't the right way to look at it. Did you catch that? Share isn't the right way to look at it. On the surface, it sounds like a simple negotiating point, but underneath, it was a declaration of war. The WNBA, the players' union, instantly erupted. They clapped back on Instagram with a now legendary post that simply read, "Don't want to share Adam Silver?" with a question mark. They were calling him out publicly and aggressively. The gloves were off.
By the way, it's not even the owners, it's the players. So the players get 50% of the money. Where does the rest of the money go? And this is revenue, not profit, not 50% of profits. They want 50% of revenue. So the WNBA costs, let's just make the maths easy. Let's just say it costs 100 million to run the WNBA. It doesn't, it costs way more. When it take into...
But here's the part that will mess with your head. Adam Silver wasn't wrong. And to understand why, you have to look at the math that the union doesn't want you to focus on. Think about the psychology in that moment. For the players, the word share is synonymous with partnership and fairness. It's the principle that if you help bake the pie, you get a guaranteed slice of it. But when Adam Silver dismisses that very concept, he's not just rejecting a number, he's rejecting their entire premise of value. He's telling them point blank that their business is not the same as the NBA business, and it never will be. This immediately put the players on the defensive, making it an emotional battle rather than a financial one.
Positions that benefit from the league not existing. There are players that benefit from the league not existing. And by the way, we know these players that are in the PA have basically diplomatic immunity from getting fired. If Unrivaled goes 5v5, they're going to make a little more money. But you want to know who's not going to make more money? The 60.
The union social media team firing back wasn't just a clapback. It was a signal to their members that they were fighting back against disrespect. But in the high-stakes world of billion-dollar negotiations, posting on Instagram is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. The league holds all the financial data, all the structural control. The union holds the public sentiment, which is a fickle and fragile weapon. This one exchange set the tone for everything that followed. A bloody war of principles versus practicality, where the very survival of the league is now the bargaining chip on the table.
Close to what he said here. We got to dial in right here. He's speaking really fast. Let's listen to this next part.
The NBA, I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and
I think you should look at absolute numbers in terms of what they're making. Because this could be a big increase, right? We don't see in their proposal. The max going from 200,000 to 850,000. That's a big increase. That's a big increase, right? The minimum being open.
The players are demanding a revenue share model identical to the NBA, where players get roughly 50% of all league revenue. It sounds fair, right? You generate the money, you should get half, but this is where the entire argument falls apart. Let's break it down with simple numbers. Imagine the WNBA brings in $100 million in total revenue. Now, imagine it costs $100 million to actually run the league. Salaries for staff, travel, arena costs, marketing, everything. If the players take 50% of that revenue, that's $50 million going straight to them. But what's left for the owners? $50 million to cover $100 million in expenses. That means every single owner would be guaranteed to lose $50 million.
That we are seeing this type of thing. And look, I think the players should make a lot more money. I think apparently somebody like who knows the WNBA finance really well is like, even if the players got 80% of their merch, and they got like a percentage of ticket revenue, which they actually get none of right now, but it's like, even if you give them 80% of their merch, apparently the total still goes to about only just over $1 million, and they're not going to.
There is no business on earth that would voluntarily accept a deal where they lose money on every single dollar that comes in. It's a financial suicide pact, so the owners would simply walk away. Now, let's take this from a simple analogy to the harsh reality. The WNBA's financials are not public, but based on the best estimates from sports business analysts, the league may indeed be operating a loss or barely breaking even when you account for all costs.
Y'all don't even own half of what's coming into your league. So that 9% might have to stay there the way that he's talking, because of how they're falling short already on making enough money to pay for how much the league costs to run, right? So that 9% might have to stay there. I don't know. That's the way he's talking. He's like, maybe not look at it as far as shares. Now, to me, it sounds like he's saying we don't necessarily want to increase that share number. We're just going to get a little bit more efficient here and there within the business.
The massive subsidies from the NBA are the only thing that has kept the ship afloat for decades. So when the players point to soaring ticket sales for Caitlin Clark games and new TV deals, they're seeing the top line revenue. What they aren't seeing are the massive fixed costs that eat that revenue alive. We're talking about charter flights, a huge point of contention, which cost tens of millions more than commercial travel. We're talking about arena leases, which are often paid for in empty seats. We're talking about marketing and promotion for a league that is still fighting for mainstream attention. The owners look at this and see a simple equation. Giving 50% of revenue to the players doesn't leave enough to cover the baseline cost of operations, let alone generate profit or allow for reinvestment into the league. It would be like demanding half the rent money from your roommate, but then expecting them to still somehow come up with the full amount for the landlord. The math literally does not add up.
If the revenue split happens, it is essentially a guarantee the owners lose money, and there's no scenario where that's ever going to happen. And I think the players are like, there will never be a situation where they budge on the revenue split. There won't be. If there's no 2026 season, there's not going to be a 2027 season, there's not going to be a 2028 season. I think an argument could be made that it is beneficial that the whole league shuts down, and it allows these players to start fresh.
The league would collapse under the weight of its own guaranteed losses, not because of greed, but because of basic arithmetic. But wait, it gets even more complicated. The real reason this share model can't work isn't just about profit and loss. It's about who actually owns the WNBA. The NBA is a monolithic entity. It owns 100% of its revenue. The WNBA is not. The WNBA is a tangled web of ownership involving the individual team owners, the NBA itself, which has been bailing the league out for years, and a group of third-party investors who own pieces of the league structure. This is the secret nobody talks about.
And talking his talk, he was going to settle everything. I thought he was going to fix everything. I called him Thanos to fix it. Man, he talking just like Kathy. He talking just like Kathy, man. He like, look, we not trying to get y'all this share money. We're going to find a way to get those increases going, right? Y'all going to make a little bit of more money, but y'all not going to get any more of this share. I'm sorry. We're not looking at it as shares because y'all not making a profit. Y'all not making close to as much as the NBA is making. So, nah, we not.
The actual WNBA teams are like minority owners in their own league. They don't even get to keep all the revenue they generate because a chunk of it has to go to these other investors just to keep the lights on. So when the players demand 50% of the revenue, they're not just asking the team owners for a cut. They're asking the NBA to take less, and they're asking outside investors to take less. And those groups have zero incentive to agree.
Would have added 24 more players, got to like, 60 instead of 44, added 16 more players, made it 5v5 with 10 players per team, and the league becomes infinitely better, but they're so stuck on gimmick basketball that's not real basketball that they've screwed it. Like, I think if Unrivaled was 5v5, I think a lot of other players would be playing. I think Caitlin Clark plays with 5v5.
Let's visualize this, because it's crucial. Imagine a pie chart of the WNBA's total revenue. Before a single player gets paid, slices of that pie are automatically carved out for the NBA, which has poured hundreds of millions into the league, and for firms like Nike or investment groups that bought a piece of the Central League office. What's left over, let's call it the team revenue pie, is what the 12 individual franchises have to split from their slice. They now have to pay for their own team staff, their own arena costs, their own everything. The players are demanding 50% of the entire original pie. That means the team owners are left trying to pay their massive bills with a fraction of the money, a fraction that is guaranteed to be less than what they need. This structure was born from necessity. It was the only way to get the WNBA off life support and attract the capital needed to survive. But now it's become a prison. The players are negotiating with the team owners, but the team owners don't have the full authority to give what the players want. They'd have to renegotiate decades-old deals with the NBA and billionaire investors, who are only in this for a return they haven't seen yet. It's an impossible chain of command, and the players, at the end of that chain, are demanding a deal that will require unraveling the entire foundation of the league's finances. While the owners were looking at these spreadsheets, the players' union was taking a very different approach, and their strategy has been chaotic, to say the least. We've seen multiple reports of zero professionalism from the WNBA. They allegedly leaked their own award winners out of sheer spite for Caitlin Clark. They demanded official investigations for incidents that, by all accounts, never even happened. They posted and then got bullied into deleting social media posts. This is the organization that's supposed to be negotiating a multi-billion-dollar future for its members. But it leads to a darker, more uncomfortable question. What if some of the people in charge of the union don't actually want a deal? What if they believe it's better for the WNBA to shut down completely? Think about it. If you're a star player with a guaranteed spot in a new league like Unrivaled, you might be fine. You might even make more money. But if you're player number 60 on the roster, the one on a minimum contract, you lose everything. Your career is over. This creates a massive internal conflict that the union seems unwilling or unable to address. This internal division is the silent killer in these negotiations. The union's leadership is comprised of veteran players, stars who have platforms, name recognition, and other income streams. For them, the gamble of a lockout might be a calculated risk. They can afford to sit out a season. They can go play overseas. They can focus on their podcasts and sponsorships. But what about the rookie try and make a roster? What about the journeywoman who has fought for years just to get a minimum contract and health insurance? For them, a missed season is catastrophic. They don't have the savings. They don't have the fame. A lockout doesn't just pause their career. It ends it. So when a union takes a hard line, all or nothing stance on a revenue share model they likely can't get, who are they really fighting for? The top 10% of the membership or the entire group? The chaotic social media activity and the leaks start to look less like a strategy and more like a symptom of an organization that doesn't have a unified front. They're trying to win the PR battle on Twitter to compensate for their weak hand at the bargaining table. And in the process, they may be burning the very bridge they need to cross to get a good deal for every single player they represent. So, what was Adam Silver actually offering? He kept talking about absolute numbers. Let's listen again. He said, I think you should look at it in absolute numbers. They are going to get a big increase, the max going from 200,000 to 850,000. This is the league's masterstroke. They are offering monumental pay raises. The max salary would more than quadruple. The minimum salary would see a huge jump. But they are absolutely refusing to budge on the revenue share percentage. From a business perspective, it's genius. They're giving the players the money they want without giving them the structural power they're demanding. They're saying, we'll find efficiencies. We'll cut costs elsewhere. Maybe we'll even skimp on things like officiating to save a few bucks. But the share, the percentage, that's staying right where it is. The players, however, have rejected this. They don't just want more money. They want a piece of the ownership. They want their pay to be directly tied to the league's health. So if it grows, they grow with it automatically. They want a partnership, not a charity. Why is a revenue share so important to players? It's about control and trust. They look at the history of the WNBA and see a league that has often been run as a loss-leading PR campaign for the NBA, not a truly independent sports enterprise. They don't trust the owners to properly invest in marketing or growth if there's no contractual obligation. A revenue share is a forced partnership. It aligns incentives. If the league makes more money, the players automatically get more money. No questions asked. Adam Silver's offer of absolute numbers is the opposite of that. It's the league saying, trust us, we'll pay you handsomely, but we alone will decide how much the league spends on everything else, and we alone will reap the unlimited rewards if the league suddenly triples in value. For the players, that's a terrifying proposition. What if the next Caitlin Clark comes along, and the league's revenue jumps to $500 million? Under Silver's offer, the players' salaries will be locked in, while the owners and investors pocket the windfall. They're being offered a great salary today in exchange for giving up any claim to the potentially massive fortune of tomorrow. It's a bet on the future, and the players are refusing to fold, believing their current momentum is a winning hand. But the league is saying the house always wins, and in this case, the house owns the table, the chips, and the entire casino. All of this is hurtling toward a single, terrifying deadline, the 2026 season. And make no mistake, this is a point of no return. The incredible momentum from Caitlin Clark's rookie year, the sold-out arenas, the historic TV ratings, the national conversation, is a fragile thing. If there is no season in 2026, that momentum doesn't just pause. It evaporates forever. It's never coming back. Think of this current moment as a rare and perfect alignment of the stars. You had a generational, record-breaking talent enter the league. You had a media ecosystem hungry for a new story. You had a social media machine that became utterly obsessed, for better or worse. This created a wave of interest that the WNBA has never seen in its nearly 30-year history. But a wave, no matter how powerful, eventually crashes and recedes. If there is number 2026 season, the WNBA will effectively be asking that wave to pause for a full year and then come back exactly as it was. That is not how culture works. That is not how fandom works. The fans who bought jerseys and tuned in every night will find other things to do. The casual viewers who got hooked will move on. The media slots that were dedicated to covering the league will be filled with something else. The momentum isn't just stopping. It's hitting a brick wall, and what's left behind will be a stain, not a foundation. And the league's physical and financial infrastructure will disintegrate at a staggering speed. Let's talk about those new expansion teams. The Golden State Valkyries and the Toronto team were hailed as a new era, proof of the league's growth. But their agreements are business deals, not act of charity. Those deals are filled with exit clauses and contingency plans that are triggered by a work stoppage. The owners of those shiny new facilities didn't build them solely for the WNBA. They are multi-purpose investments. Without a season, they won't sit empty. They will be immediately repurposed for concerts, conventions, and other sporting events. The window to get a professional sports team into a major market is incredibly small, and if you miss it, that window slams shut, likely for a generation. The same goes for the broadcast partners. ESPN and Amazon didn't sign deals out of goodwill. They signed them for content. No content means no payments, and it also means renegotiating future deals from a position of catastrophic weakness, not strength. The entire business ecosystem that has been painstakingly built around the league will unravel in a matter of months. The owners and investors are protected. They have diversified portfolios. The NBA owners who run WNBA teams have their billion-dollar NBA franchises to fall back on. The third-party investors likely have write-offs and tax benefits that soften the blow. For them, the WNBA is an asset in a spreadsheet. It can be written down, sold off, or shut down. It's a financial decision. But for the players, the 60 to 100 women whose entire lives and careers are built on this platform, they are left with absolutely nothing. No paychecks, no health insurance, no platform to showcase their talent. The rank and file players, the ones who make the league function but don't have the star power, face financial ruin. Many of them already go overseas to make a living, but that market is volatile and relies on them staying visible and relevant. A year out of the spotlight, especially after the peak of this current attention, could be a career ender. They are staring into an abyss, forced to consider life after basketball years before they plan to. And what is the alternative they're being offered? A rival league unrivaled, that plays a different sport. 3-on-3 basketball is not 5-on-5. It's a condensed, simplified version of the game. It's an exhibition, not a league. It cannot absorb 144 players. It cannot command major TV deals. It cannot replace the institutional legitimacy of the WNBA. For the stars who are promoting it, it's a side project or a potential landing spot. For the majority of the league, it's a fantasy, a lifeboat with only 44 seats for 144 people. So the brutal reality is this: a lockout doesn't create leverage for the players. It annihilates their entire profession. The owners can afford to lose the WNBA. The players cannot. This is the ultimate, terrifying asymmetry in this negotiation. The union is betting with the players' lives, while the league is betting with a line item on a budget. The 2026 season is not just another season. It is a final exam. It's a test of whether this league can transition from a subsidized project into a self-sustaining business. And if the answer is no, the consequences will be absolute, final, and tragic for the very women who fought so hard to bring it to this point. So here we are. The WNBA is trapped in an impossible standoff. On one side, you have players who finally feel they have the leverage to demand a true partnership, asking for a financial model that the current business structure simply cannot support. On the other side, you have a league offering life-changing salary increases, but refusing to give up control, all while being propped up by investors who want to see a return. The greatest season in league history, driven by its most iconic rookie, has created a paradox. The players see the boom and think, we deserve half. The owners see the same boom and realize that even with this boom, giving up half still means they lose money. This is the tragic endgame. The success that was supposed to save the WNBA might ultimately be what destroys it, because it created a demand that the business, as it's built, can never fulfill. The fight isn't about fairness anymore. It's about cold, hard, unforgiving math. If you've made it this far, you understand the real story behind the headlines. This is so much bigger than just a pay dispute. This is a battle for the soul and the very survival of the league. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is there any way out of this that doesn't end with the WNBA shutting down? And if you want to stay up to date on this and other stories that are not telling you about the business of sports, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next.